Welcome to the panel where Bootstrap founders talk about building a better business and a better life. I'm Justin Jackson, the co-founder of Transistor.fm.
And I'm Brian Castle. I'm a product designer, developer, just launched instrumental components. And maybe today we'll talk about what I'm doing next.
So last episode was a lot about me and Transistor and the podcast industry. I had lots of great feedback from folks about that episode. We also talked about the format of the show, how difficult it was to get panelists every episode. And we wanted to try something new for this episode, which was to record it live here June 5th, 12:15 p.m. Pacific. And we've already got some people in live chat. If this works out, we might do it again. So here we are. We'll see if the folks in chat have things to say as we go along.
Yeah, I'm excited for this new format. To be honest, I'm not expecting a whole lot of live interaction. There might be a few people. I see some familiar faces in the chat already. But I really like this whole idea of let's just record the episodes like we normally would. And then maybe introducing listener questions, audience questions, and maybe even bring people live onto the panel if and when it makes sense, maybe near the end of each episode.
That's right. Like in the future, and maybe even this episode, if we get really crazy, we can add people as guests. So I could DM somebody a link if we're feeling like, hey, you should be in a part of this chat. All right.
I also like the idea of the fact that we're recording it today, June 5th, and we'll get this episode out pretty quickly. Because especially if we're talking about real-time things that are happening in our world this week, it's always kind of annoying when that comes out 2 weeks later. It's I'm not even thinking about that anymore.
Yeah. I mean, we don't know what this is going to become, but this could become a mashup of Bootstrapped Web, Build Your SaaS, and the panel all in one thing. Mm-hmm. We might even release more episodes. Maybe we can release weekly if we do it this way. This is all an experiment. So
yep,
let's get into it. Less stuff about me and more stuff about you. I think folks are going to want to hear how the launch of instrumental components went. And also, before we started recording, you said, now you're thinking about the next thing as well. So yep. Maybe for folks who don't know, what is instrumental components? And then maybe just talk us through how the launch has been so far.
Yeah, I mean, it's always, for me, it's always interesting how, there's what I'm actively working on. There's also what I'm actively publicly promoting. And for the past couple of weeks and months, that's been instrumental components. But the reality has been behind the scenes, maybe equally, if not more, I've been plotting and researching and exploring really what I plan to do next after instrumental components. And I feel like this week, this week of around June 5th, 2025 is my first truly active week of now I'm working on my next business. But we can save all that for maybe later. But yeah, for now, let's unpack the launch of instrumental components. And now it is fully launched. It's out there. You can go to it. You can go to the pricing. As of June, the month of June, I still have the the launch discount. I did change something about the pricing. We can talk more about that. Yeah. Overall, I would say in terms of did it meet my expectations? I think so. I didn't have very high expectations for it. I would say it probably exceeded that a little bit.
What is that not? You didn't have high expectations because are you trying to protect yourself a little bit, or is that just what
probably
you thought?
Some of that, but also just being real about it. So, so just people might be wondering, it's done just about 10,000 in revenue so far.
Okay.
In the first, it's been. So I started inviting customers 4 weeks ago. That's been okay,
So $10,000 in revenue so far, and you kind of rolled out the launch, and that's with a waiting list of how many people?
About 800.
Okay.
So like that's where it feels like it underperformed. If you just look at the numbers, like I don't know, like what's the number of customers on that? Like 20, something like that.
I mean, to me, that seems pretty reasonable. Did you happen to catch Aaron and Ian on the Mostly Technical podcast talk about that launch?
By the way, Aaron and Ian, I thought that was one of your best episodes yet.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
Aaron, as believe me, I've been there. Like as painful as like the flat launch thing goes, but I don't see it as a failure anyway. That's a whole other story.
But I wonder if Ian's point, because one of the things Ian was saying, and Ian also just had this big session with Caleb, who does Flux, which is a similar product.
That was almost like too long. I couldn't get into that.
But I'm wondering if there's anything there. Like, are you thinking about this as a info product, which typically you launch like a book or a course, and it's like a bunch of sales in the first 3 days, and then it goes down, and then you have to relaunch it every year. You have to do
so that's
Black
an
Friday
question.
And
because
and
it doesn't.
And Ian was saying maybe some of these products you need to consider. You need to consider them to be actual products. So, a SaaS product, you launch it, and out of the gate you get a certain amount of sales, but then it builds gradually over time as you get all the channels kind of. So, which do you feel like instrumental components is? You're going to treat it more like a product, or what's your feel?
Yeah, let me. Great question, because there's so much wrapped into that in terms of what were my expectations, what are my future plans for it, and also how I'm pricing it, because I did change from the recurring model to lifetime. I just made that change a few days ago. Okay, so first of all, expectations. When I started building instrumental components, which is a components library for Ruby on Rails, I started working on that around the fall of 2024, so like maybe 10 months ago. And so we talked about this last week, but like so much has changed in that, just in the last 8 months, just in the industry, in my world, in everything.
By that you mean like AI or anything else?
AI and like how things are built. That's just like one thing that's in the landscape. But when I started building it, I was like, I just got to get back into the rhythm of building and launching new products. I'm coming off of 4 or 5 years of just being solely focused on Clarity Flow, my SaaS business, right? And I made the decision almost 2 years ago now that like it's time for me to just make like just let Clarity Flow sort of run and do its thing, and now it's time to focus on the next thing. And it actually took me well over a year before I got the energy or got the direction in place to say like, okay, this is going to be a new product that I launch, and I settled on I should do a Rails components library product. Since I build in Rails, it's sort of like leveraging my byproducts. I'm doing a lot of projects right now with clients. I can extract components out of that. That's exactly what I did. So from that sense, it was like a convenient type of product for me to build and launch. In terms of like setting my expectations, I never expected or intended for this to be my new next big focus or next big long-term business thing where like now I'm going to be the Rails components guy for the next 5-10 years. Like no way. Like no.
Yeah.
It's just I just don't even think that the potential for that type of business is even there, let alone my interest in being that guy.
Okay.
To me, from the get-go, it's always been like, let me try to just get back to building and shipping a small product. Let me go back to the first stair in the staircase.
Yeah.
This is not this is not a SaaS business where I'm like, let's launch a SaaS and focus on it for the next 3 years, whatever. Like, so there's that. And then there's also just the expectation of like, how big is the Rails space and the market for this really, right? We all know that like, Rails is really mature, but it's not the most popular framework anymore, not even by a long shot.
Yeah.
And then even within that, it's like how willing to pay what's the willingness to pay for paid components libraries like this?
Yeah.
I do think that there's a case to be made that like there is a lack of quality UI components libraries in the Rails space, especially ones that are like come pre-wired up with Rails and stimulus and all the things.
Yeah.
So I think it's a good product for Rails, but even like and then there's also just like I don't have a super large audience. I have some audience, some people who've been following me for many years, right? Like my personal email list is, I mean, I've like, what do you call it? Like pruned it quite a bit over the years, but like it's probably around like 5,000 people.
Yeah.
And then my Twitter following is not huge. People have been following my podcast for years, but it's not super large. But then even within the few thousand people who might even know who I am and what I do, have been following my story, even within that pool, a very small percentage of them are actually Ruby on Rails developers.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So like there might be people who like the look of instrumental components, but they're like, that's interesting. I just don't build in Rails. So it wouldn't be even compatible with them.
Okay. Let's just pause here because I want to react to some of that stuff. I think some thoughts on the top of my head, and maybe on other people are thinking about this too, is one question would be, why not just go for projects that you think have the potential to be big? So why are you limiting yourself in saying, oh, I'm just going to do this, it's just small? Why not just say, you know what, I'm going to only invest in things that have the potential or capacity to be a bigger in terms of an engine that could actually, pull your whole business?
It's a good question. I think what I'm thinking about now in terms of like the thing that I'm starting to really invest in going forward, that's more where my mindset is at. Like whatever I'm starting now should be a bigger commitment, multi-year investment, right? But the last 2 years, I was in a reset mode because I had started Clarity Flow, which started under the name Zip Message in it was like January of 2021 was when I started that business.
Yep.
Took a little bit of investment on it and went quote unquote all in on it. Still a decent SaaS business, but not. It definitely did not meet my expectations. Did not meet like exit velocity or where it's like it just got to a point where like it did not make financial sense for me to remain all in on it. I've talked about that ad nauseum, like on Bootstrap Web and everything.
Although I still think folks might be interested in that, because really the tension I'm hearing here, and I think this is just what we all feel, is I just was listening to the Steve Ballmer interview on the Acquired podcast. And Steve Ballmer's like, listen, every Microsoft success, like Azure, everyone thinks that just popped off in the last few years, and now it's made Microsoft the most valuable company in the world. He said, we were working on that for 8 years before anybody even heard about it. He says things just take time. And a lot of the stuff that we see that's a success, he also mentioned like OpenAI. Like OpenAI has been going since, 2016 or something? And so there's this tension, I think, especially for bootstrappers, because we need to be able to make money, which is like, the question for you would be, if Brian had pushed on Clarity Flow more and not gotten distracted with this other stuff, would that have been a better strategy than going and doing this other stuff?
What I would say to that is that would be an excellent point to be made if I was in year 1 or year 2, maybe in year 3 of Clarity Flow.
Yeah,
I did not come to the conclusion because for the first 3+ years I did not do anything else. I sold everything else.
Yeah.
I literally sold audience ops. I sold Productize.
Yeah.
Like the course thing, I sold that to someone else.
Yeah.
I literally did nothing else.
Yeah.
For over 3 years, right? I did no consulting. I did no info products. I did no other software tools. It it came to a point around between year 3 and year 4. This is like now like beginning of 2024, where it's like, okay, like what are my choices? My choices are raise more investment.
Yeah.
To like extend out the runway.
Yeah.
Or maybe have some like magical thinking of like sometime in the next 6 months we're going to rocket ship our growth, where there's just no evidence that that's going to happen.
Yeah.
You know, so like then it was just a thing of like, it's look, I gave it, and just to be clear, I still run Clarity Flow today. It has not even declined. It's still growing like super slowly, like not a successful growth rate by any means, but not declining.
I think
it's just a thing that I made the decision this is back in 2024. I made the decision that like I don't want to raise more investment in this.
Yeah.
I don't want to invest more years of my career into this thing that just did not take off the way that I hoped it would.
Yeah.
I've already done the pivoting and the customer research and the repositioning and all that. So my decision was like, instead of this being my 100% business, it has to turn into my 20% thing, you know?
I think this doesn't get talked about enough, which is there is some amount of, I guess luck would be the word, but like the biggest threat when you're bootstrapping is that you're going to burn out or you're going to go broke. So you either burn out psychologically, you know, people get shingles, people get like,
which
you did
around that time,
Yep. Or you run out of money. And, you know, with Transistor, looking back on it now, especially if you listen to those episodes that my business partner, John, and I were recording at the time, we were close to breaking. Like, it was like, this thing has to work, you know? And it was building gradually, and sometimes you don't feel how gradual it's building. But in retrospect, we actually grew pretty fast, and we were able to get to kind of a full-time income fairly quickly. So if we built it together from like January 2018 to August 2nd, 2018 when we launched, and then it took us 1 year after that to both go full-time on it. You look at Adam Wathan and Steve Shoger, you know, they had this financial engine that was working with their course. And that was just, you know, pulling the whole business. And that gave them time to go and explore this other stuff.
Yeah.
And so it's hard. Like, you never know how long it's going to take for that financial engine to get going. And then you also just don't know, you know, like with Clarity Flow, for example, like it might be still growing slowly, but it's like, you don't know when it's going to get to the point where it might be able to be the full-time thing. It's just hard.
Exactly. It absolutely is hard. So anyway, like that's, to me, like that whole decision logic flow, like that's decided, and I'm way past that. That was like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Right? And so I spent the last 2 years, the year of 2024 and now into 2025, sort of picking up the pieces and figuring, and in the meantime doing some consulting projects like MVPs as a service. And that's been good for cash flow, like keeping the lights on, and that's, you know, that covers more than half of it, but Clarity Flow still is still just something in my portfolio. It's not, but it's just not enough to be my only thing.
Yeah.
But so then it was like, okay, so what is next? And I also made the decision sometime in the last year or two that just like, and we've talked about this on this show, that like, I think I'm done with the SaaS dream, if you will. Like, it doesn't, like, whatever my next thing is, it doesn't have to be a SaaS business. You know, SaaS businesses are great, and I'm not against, and maybe I will hack on something that becomes sort of like a SaaS business again, but like, and technically what I build in software with Rails and whatnot, these are SaaS applications. But I'm sort of over the idea of like, I'm going to launch a thing that's $49 a month. That's going to be the thing that sustains my next 5-10 years. Like,
yeah,
you know, and also like, I'm also sort of, the one and only time I decided to take investment was the beginning of Zip Message, which became Clarity Flow.
Yeah.
I think I'm done with that route.
Yeah.
What I learned was like, I'm a bootstrapper at heart. I'm more comfortable operating from a bootstrapper's mindset. So again, this goes back to that question of like, well, what if I just went all in and put more effort in and more this or that in to make that business work? Well, what that would have required is more investment.
Yeah.
There's just no way around that, right? Because I was spending a lot on marketing, and I tried all the experiments, like tens of thousands on ads, on SEO, on all of it. Like some things sort of worked, and some things still work for us today. Like we get customers mostly from SEO, you know.
Yeah.
But like even our success, even our wins in marketing, it still just gets us like X number of customers a month. That's it.
Yeah.
You know,
I'm like of two minds about this, because I think from the outside, there's part of me that's like, man, like whenever you see anybody launch something and you're like, you think about the potential of that thing. And sometimes it feels like, oh, if they just doubled down on this and spent another, for example, instrumental components, if you just doubled down on that, went to every Rails conference, got on every Rails mailing list, you just immersed yourself just in that world, it feels like that's the maybe the only or best way to truly find out what the appetite for something is in a market.
Yep.
On the other hand, again, when John and I are building Transistor, if you look back on that, like John was working full time, hating it, like going to work all day, coming home and working on Transistor. And I had just tons of different projects going to pay the bills. And it wasn't ideal. But at the time, John and I were both like, we don't know if this Transistor thing's going to work. Like in retrospect, it was the thing that worked. But I was like pushing on other stuff too, to maybe that's the thing that's going to be the engine that drives my whole career, you know? So I think it's hard in those moments.
Yeah. And I really just don't want to spend too much time talking about like the Clarity Flow business. But one thing that did go into that decision back in 2024 was, look, I am close with lots of other SaaS founders.
Yeah.
And I know their story and their MRR graphs from before they even started their businesses.
Yeah.
And it's just natural for me to compare my business to the 10s or 20s of people that I know, and just look at the time frames. Like they crossed this threshold in half the time that Clarity Flow did. Like it's just math on the page. Like you just can't ignore some realities in terms of like growth rate and all that.
Yeah.
And whatever, you could pick apart all the different strategies, like, oh, I focused on this or that, or the wrong positioning on this or that. But
yeah,
at the end of the day, like time is time.
Yeah.
Like
and I think also the way to think about it too is, I mean, you and I have used this metaphor of home runs versus line drives. And we've kind of joked that maybe we're both kind of like line drive people, but the difference between like going up to bat and like hitting something, like maybe Clarity Flow is a line drive. It's just like you launched it, it has customers, and it's growing. But in terms of it being like the big engine that's going to drive your business and your family and everything, it's just not there. And so in that sense, it makes sense to keep swinging.
Yeah, and that's what I came to. And then so with instrumental components, I was never expecting it to be, again, like an all-in type of product or business. Really my only intention in even starting it is like I need to just start and launch a new product again, just to get back into that rhythm, get that muscle. Because I'm sort of like, I can't believe it took me until 2025. Because I don't think that I even launched any paid products since the beginning of Zip Message.
Yeah.
I think instrumental components was the first thing that I actually said, like, hey, do you want to buy this? You know, so.
And that muscle is super important.
Yeah.
This might be a good time to just bring in some of the chat here, because I think it's interesting. We got Dave Junta in the comments here. There's some good stuff here. I think, especially, let's see here. I won't I won't talk about all of them, but one thing that Dave said was, regardless of whether or not a business reaches its escape velocity, you still need the drive and motivation to take it all the way. And I think that's another factor that people don't talk about. Like,
this is all right. So I don't want to come off as like too defensive on this or anything like that, but there's a general, not necessarily just here, just in general. I've heard, I hear, talking in public about businesses on podcasts or on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
It's just impossible for anyone on the outside looking in to know what goes into every individual
absolutely
day-to-day decision.
Yeah.
That's number one. You will never get even whatever you hear me or anyone else talk about on a podcast, you are hearing like 5% of the story.
Mm-hmm.
As transparent as I want to be, like there's just so much more.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is for me, and just thinking about new businesses going forward, I really am, how do I put this? Because there's a balance between like thinking big and trying to do the next big home run
mm-hmm.
with taking too big of a risk.
Mm-hmm.
And also like, I'm just not of the mindset anymore, especially, I'm just not of the mindset that like, if I'm doing one product, like let's say instrumental components, that does not bar me from doing another product.
Yeah.
Like people, that's what is so challenging about marketing and being public about these products. Because to me, instrumental components is sort of like the perfect type of product to run as like a 20%, 20% maintenance mode type of product.
Yeah. Yeah.
It doesn't have to be all in.
Yeah.
And I don't intend to be all in on it. And I never did intend to be all in on it.
Yeah.
And
to underscore that, I think that's such a great point about like what people can see publicly and what, what's actually going on. I mean, I'll just speak for myself. People had a sense that I was stressed out while I was building Transistor. They did not know how really stressed out I was. Like some of that came out publicly, but it is such a huge risk. This is the biggest risk, is the ability to keep going, to not burn out, to not have, to not become unhealthy, and to not go broke. Like, it's just so hard. And I think one thing I've appreciated about your approach this time is you've spoken a lot about like, listen, like I'm up here taking swings, but I'm not going to invest so much that it kills me. I'm not going to invest so much that it ruins me financially. And if we look at the landscape, like, and again, I don't, anybody that stops being a founder, it's like, I totally get it. Like some days I dream about going and getting a real job, it's just, it's tough. And and a lot of the success stories that we know, they incubated a bunch of ideas along the way. Like John Young Fook at Banner Bear is another one I think about. Like even since Banner Bear, he's launched probably 3 or 4 other things, and I don't think they worked out. He doesn't really talk about them anymore. That's kind of how it is at Transistor. Internally, we've started a bunch of things that no one heard about and then decided to shelve them. That's just kind of how it works. And really the biggest risk is, I still think the tension is interesting. Like, do I double down and just go for it?
I think doubling down, like it becomes obvious
when
you should be doubling down.
Mm-hmm.
When you are, because one thing that I've noticed and observed with most of the successful SaaS companies, I think probably Transistor is included in this.
Yeah.
At a certain point, they are successful despite their shortcomings.
Mm-hmm.
They are successful, even with gaps in their product. They are successful even with only doing 1 or 2 marketing channels and not touching all of them.
Yeah.
People are just, you've talked about it a lot. Like there's a natural wave happening in a market, like where like you're just serving. I actually want to like talk about what's going forward, because I feel like I'm on the cusp of a wave right now.
Yeah.
I do want to talk about what I'm starting up.
Yeah.
Going forward, just to tie the bow on the instrumental components thing.
Yeah.
I wanted to sort of report on the pricing, because we talked about that a bit in the last episode. Should it be recurring, like an annual recurring pricing, or just a one-time lifetime thing? A few days ago, I decided to turn off recurring.
All right.
I changed it to a lifetime license. So, and it's interesting. And like, I've never done this before, where like at least probably more than half of the customers did buy when it said $4.99 per year.
Yeah.
You know, they paid $2.99 for the first year, but like the thing said like first year, and then it'll renew at $4.99. And most people bought at that price. So meaning I had subscriptions in Stripe. I went in and I turned off those subscriptions. They are not going to get renewed. And then there've been a bunch of sales since then, and so now it's promoted as like it's $4.99 normal price. Right now, promoted as $2.99 lifetime.
And what was the thinking behind that? What precipitated the change?
I think number one, just honestly, the recurring thing just did not really feel right, if I'm honest about it. I felt a little bit like, would I subscribe? Would I actually pay $500 a year for a components library? Like, if I'm honest, like probably not. You know, the only case that I would make for paying annually would be if you're an agency and you're doing lots of apps for clients.
Yeah.
On a recurring basis, then I could see the case for a recurring thing. So there's that, and then the other thing is like the commitment factor. People are going to obviously hear this the wrong way, but I'm not ending my investment or commitment to instrumental components.
Yeah.
But it is a one-time sale product. So I'm not going to feel the obligation to say, like, if I'm charging annually for this, how many new components am I actually releasing on an annual basis?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, that doesn't matter.
And
and just one more thing on the, this is what you're buying is version 1 of instrumental components. Everything that is on the site right now, you are getting. And I do intend to, I just launched 2 more components yesterday. There will be more components throughout the year. So current purchasers still get that stuff. As long as I'm calling it 1 point something, actually right now it's like 0 point, but you're buying that version.
Yeah.
Maybe, huge maybe, if maybe in the future I decide like I want to create a whole new and improved version of instrumental components. This is going to be the 2.0. Then it's just like any other downloadable software. Past customers can like pay for the upgrade. New customers will pay full price. You know. Yeah. I have no immediate plans to do that anytime soon. But like that's the type of product this is. It's like it's on the shelf over there. If you want to buy it, it's great for Rails. I'm going to be using it still for all my Rails projects. I don't know. It just feels right. Yeah.
And again, like that, the launch you've done so far is nothing to sneeze at. That's a good, that seems to me like a good line drive, especially with a waiting list of about 800 people. That seems about in line with what I would expect.
And also what I like about it is that like people find it through YouTube.
Yeah.
Most of the buyers for this don't know me, don't listen to this podcast.
Yeah.
They just found, so again, like Rails is not a super popular framework as much as it used to be.
Yeah.
But there's still a little bit of traffic that comes through YouTube. And they find my components and several of them have actually bought. Like,
yeah,
that's a pretty cool thing that could continue to trickle in throughout the year. It's just a little thing in the portfolio.
Yeah. 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 I love it. And I think for anyone listening or watching, if there's ways we can help Brian out, like if you have a Rails newsletter, feature it in the Rails newsletter. If you know some people in the Rails community, reach out to them. Let's get some kind of community action going here. Community action was very helpful for me at Transistor. Just people on their own, promoting us and or referring us to people with newsletters and YouTube channels and podcasts.
All right, let me tell you about a really interesting thing that happened this week.
Okay.
This is about going forward.
This is the new thing.
I was in the shower thinking my typical business strategy shower thoughts. And it's not like this just started 2 days ago. I've been thinking about this for a year or more now. But like the direction that I'm taking is like helping builders build with AI.
Yeah.
And if you are an experienced full stack developer, I want to help you transition to the new way that software is built, and that is using tools like Cursor and specific new approaches to the whole software development process. Now collaborating with AI.
Yeah.
It's just, and I just think that like you could say like, oh, I dabbled with it 6 months ago and it just didn't click for me. Like that's fine, but just know that like you're still building the old way and there is a new way now, and this is where the industry is going.
Yeah.
If you want to deny that, you can. It's just that's just the reality. And so I'm actually super optimistic about this future for how we design and build software. I think the tooling is incredible, and I don't think that we lose any sense of craft or taste or ambition. I think it actually maximizes that stuff.
Yes.
So I'm really excited about this whole movement. And there are different. There's like a Venn diagram of this where like you've got like the indie hackers, the quote unquote stupid vibe coders who are like, look, you could hack a big app in a day with this. And like, yeah, you could hack on little side fun projects. But then there's also like the professionals, like, you know, the SaaS companies, the teams, the professionals who are doing this for a living.
I was going to make a Venn diagram for people live.
and I just think that there is still a lack of content, especially content that speaks to the professional and speaks to the teams. So in general, the direction that I'm going is like content, YouTube content, which could turn into training, courses, workshops. But I was thinking the other day, I was like, you know, there really seems to be a need, and I'm sort of seeing rumblings of it with professional developers and also SaaS teams who they feel like they're a little bit behind the curve on adopting these new ways of building, and getting the speed benefits and getting the product benefits. And and I was like, maybe there's some sort of like, maybe I can go into companies and offer personalized workshops or personalized training or coaching for teams.
Yeah.
And you can like outsource to me. Like I'm the one who's staying on top of the new approaches to building at a professional level, building with AI, and everything that you can do with the cursors and whatnot.
I love this for you, by the way. Just to interject, I think you've been talking about this forever. Of all the people in my mind in the community that have been a longtime proponent of building with AI, it's you. So I think this matches up with your profile, your passion, your energy.
So thank you. I appreciate that. So I'm thinking about that on Tuesday in the shower.
Yeah.
1 hour later, I get an email from a friend. I won't share his name. I don't know if he wants to be public about this, but he runs a successful SaaS company. He's got a small team of like, 8 to 10 people on the team, a bunch of engineers. And he's like, and I have not put out publicly that I'm offering this or anything. He sends me an email, and I haven't even spoken to him in a bunch of months. And his subject line was, can you coach my team on using AI to upgrade our development process? And I was like, dude, like I'm thinking about this today. Like what is that? So I just had a great call with him this morning actually, and kind of jamming on like what an engagement of like this could look like. So I think that there's something there. I also think that I published a new YouTube video on this topic this morning. There have been a few step changes in the tooling around AI.
Yep.
And I think there have been like 3 big ones so far, and we're entering the third one right now. The first one was like just tab completion, right? Like
Yeah.
you're writing a line of code and then it's auto completed. You press tab. Cool. Like that was kind of cool when it started 2-3 years ago.
Yeah.
Then we have like agent mode, which is like Cursor for the past year. And that's kind of where we've been. That's where I've been now. But now there's this third mode, which sort of builds on agent mode, but it's a more task oriented. Like you build out this PRD, project requirements document to sort of map out like, here's the whole product or here's the whole big feature. Let's break it out into tasks. Let's break that out into subtasks. And the AI is helping to write the PRD and write out the tasks and write out the subtasks and the dependencies. So you have this whole plan in place, literally a checklist. And then you have your AI build each feature and check off the thing in the checklist in an orderly, professional, like this is how a professional project gets built in collaboration with the AI, like rather than like running in circles with these all random prompts all day and like, this is a more, like, so I think, and like, so Ryan Carson just published a really great thing on this. There's a tool called Taskmaster, which is built around the same concept.
Okay.
So like this is like the newest approach.
Yeah.
It like builds on top of what we've been doing with Cursor and whatnot. So like this is where the industry is headed. This is what building with AI is looking like.
Yeah.
And yeah,
I think, and the headlines kind of write themselves for this stuff. One thing a lot of devs say is, I feel like I just have to constantly babysit the AI. And so I would, if you were offering some sort of service that's stop babysitting your co-pilot or whatever, I could see that being attractive.
Yep.
Do you have a specific offer in mind, or is it kind of coalescing around coaching or some sort of productized service? What do you think?
I have no idea. It's so up in the air. That's been my problem, is like overthinking this for the past 6 months.
Yeah.
Like this week is the first week that I'm really starting to like, now I'm working on this direction.
Yeah.
But I've been thinking about it for 6-8 months and thinking like, all right, well, what does this turn into? Is it a course? Is it like one of those like cohort based courses? Is it coaching? Is it a book? Is it, I don't know. Like all I know, here's what I know for sure. The top of the funnel is going to probably be mostly YouTube. I'm going to continue to do content on YouTube every week.
Yeah.
And maybe a newsletter with that. I need to figure out how to really generate a list of people who are really interested in this stuff. So I think like YouTube into workshops or some sort of lead magnet. Mm-hmm. The other reality of all this is that it is changing so fast, and that's part of what is wrapped up in the pain point for most people, companies, and developers, is that like it is changing so damn fast. I personally can't believe how like when I'm working on software today, it looks so different than it did just 12 months ago.
Yeah.
So I think part of this is like, I can't just like invest in like building a whole big flagship course around today's version of how you build, because today's version is going to be different 3-6 months from now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think it's a more fluid, like month to month, like here's where we are, and here's what's happening on the cutting edge, but maybe one step back from the cutting edge. Like here's how to make this more mainstream. Like there's always going to be the cutting edge stuff, and like there's no way anyone can keep up with that.
Yeah.
But then there's the layer of like, okay, AI building for the rest of us.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I don't want to completely fall behind, but I want to make sure that whatever we are investing in is tried and tested and sort of like trusted at this point.
Yeah. This would be a great place for us to bring in the panel of people that have been watching live. I think we got Adam Wathen in the chat here. We got all sorts of great people in the chat.
All right.
But I'm wondering, for people out there right now who are on teams or who are building things themselves, even folks like Adam Wathen, like AI is affecting everything. AI affects how people use Tailwind CSS. AI, even I think what was interesting about instrumental components is that you built it to be AI first. Like you're going to suck all these components into your AI tool. It's going to know, here's all the components that are available. And it's like an AI first way of using something external like that.
Yep.
But I think everybody's thinking, at Transistor, we're thinking about this too. It's like, how it's kind of been tenuous. It's like, do we really want to include this in our day to day? And
one thing
what
I
does
learned,
it look like?
I had a great hour-long conversation with this guy today, with a friend of mine today about working with him and his team on an engagement, and it was just a discovery call for me, like just to learn about like what is the actual need, because he approached me with this. What is the benefit or the pain point? And I'm starting to zero in on it. This is sort of an aha moment just from today, which was most people, especially employees at companies, don't have the time or the incentive to work on their workflow.
Yeah.
Like most people, their current task that they are being paid to do is to build and ship some feature. So if they have a choice today, Thursday, should I work on that thing that we want to ship by Monday? Or should I spend today learning about Cursor 1.0 that just dropped?
Yeah.
Or learning about this V0 tool that people are talking about? Or seeing how maybe we should like retool how we develop and plan new features with an AI first mindset. Like most people don't spend time working on that. That's why most people are like sort of feel like they're behind. And frankly, like if you're a paid developer at any company, like you're making the correct choice to just work on the stuff that you're being paid to do, like build stuff the way that you know how.
Yeah.
So the value of bringing someone like me in, or eventually this turns into a bigger company, the value is like, we're doing that like workflow improvement and staying up on the latest approaches and tooling. And so like I can come in and work with your team and like sort of observe how things are going and maybe find some low hanging fruit, make some recommendations, offer some ideas. But just know that like, you know, it's like a gym trainer, right? Like somebody who's just coming in, like there's no specific like deliverable, like by the end of this month we're going to change everything, but like just every week my team is staying aware, my team is making little changes to their form, you know, making improvements. I mean, like I'm not trying to create a new consulting job for myself, but I just think that like that's the core need. How this builds out into a bigger business is a bigger conversation. But for right now, like I think it's an interesting space to play in and sort of get into motion on, you know.
Okay, so the chat kind of erupted while you were talking. I don't know how delayed they are, but we've got Andy Miller's like 100% this. It sounds like he's struggling with which tools to use, what AI to use. Zach Gilbert saying as a solo dev, he feels like it's hard to keep up with everything. And then Adam, I'm trying to get into what Adam Wathen is talking about here. And then Andy Miller saying for the agent style coding, it only clicked for him this week. The pain point has been getting the time to experiment and getting it to work.
That's the thing.
Yeah. Yeah. See, maybe I can just throw out one vision for what this could look like. I'm sure you've thought about this, but to me, there does need to be something like an AI for the rest of us newsletter that I get every week, which as a CEO or a founder or a CTO, it's like, here's the stuff you need to worry about. I've filtered out all the, what do we call them? The LLM boys or the vibe coding boys. Like I've taken them all out. I've gone in and investigated all these crazy claims. Here's what you need to know about if you're building real software, if you're, you know, actually creating real stuff, if you're an experienced Rails developer or an experienced Laravel developer, here's what you need to know. It feels like there needs to be a newsletter for that.
I love that.
And attached with that is something that would be a forcing function for teams and solo devs. something like AI field day or something, where it's like you market these events that people have to pay for, which is just like, I'm going to force you to take some time out of your schedule to walk through this. And we're going to have a cohort of 5 to 20 people. It's AI field day, Friday, June 17th or whatever. And it's going to be an opportunity for a CTO or a founder or whoever to say to their team, listen, like, we need to take this seriously. We need to take some time away from our regular work to do this. And here's a perfect little block for us to do that. And Brian's providing us with the forcing function and the container for how we're going to figure this out.
Yeah, I really like that. So first thing was the newsletter, and just like condensing what actually matters. What should I spend time thinking and focusing on, versus, there are a lot of these. There's just so many new tools, new startups coming up every single day, and most of them, I don't know. My video has no signal.
We just lost your video signal.
Is that on me? Let me try to reset my.
Try turning it off and on again. You still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. I'm curious to just in the chat here. It's Adam's talking about how they're using it at Tailwind, which is interesting.
What I was saying was, like, I personally try to block out and ignore most of the newest cutting edge. Like, this is a startup that just came up this week. They'll probably flame out by next week.
Yeah.
Right. But what I'm really interested in are the patterns that I see repeating. Right. So just 2-3 weeks ago, I hear about this tool, Taskmaster.
Yeah.
Which is sort of like it's a command line tool that you can use on top of Cursor or any other VS Code, whatever else you're using. But it organizes in your workflow into PRD first, and then tasks, and then subtasks, and then go.
Yeah.
And then I saw Ryan Carson talking about the same exact workflow, but like a lighter weight version of it with some Cursor rules.
Yeah.
But it's still PRD, tasks, subtasks, go. That's a pattern.
Yeah.
And that's something that we can build on, and I believe that's the way of it. It's modeled after delegating to a junior developer.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's taking what's happening on the cutting edge, but you start to see another pattern that I'm just starting to see. Oh, what up, Adam?
I invited Adam to talk about what he's doing on the Tailwind side. But finish your thought, Brian, and then we'll get to Adam.
Yeah. So Cursor has become sort of pretty solid in the workflow. But one thing I'm playing around with today is this V0 from Vercel, which is I think they're probably trying to build their own version of Cursor, but what it's really good at is building UI front end stuff.
Yeah.
So the workflow of building the front end design there first, and then taking it into Cursor to build out the rest of the app is sort of just looking for these directional patterns that people are doing that maybe teams can start to adopt.
Yeah. And you can see how you could coach somebody on all that stuff, especially again, Transistor, we're not doing very much in that right now. Adam, what are you doing? I couldn't quite get from chat. It sounds you were saying you're using it to do speed up your own stuff internally.
Yeah, the big thing. Can you hear me and everything? Okay, I've never used any of this setup for doing these podcasts.
Yeah,
but I think we're just noticing a lot of places where there's projects where we've historically said, oh yeah, that would be good to do, but Jesus Christ, that would be so much work. Someone would have to spend 3 months doing the same thing over and over and over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And people are going to quit if I ask them to do that. So we just don't do it. So the example I was giving in chat is adding dark mode support to every single component in Tailwind UI, it's a super tedious going through 600 files and fine tuning things for dark mode and making them look good. And we've never done it because it's do I really want to task someone for 3 months doing that? And they're not going to be happy. They're going to be miserable doing it.
Yeah.
But then realizing that we can teach the computer to do that is way changes the whole project, because yeah, you still might have to fine tune some stuff a little bit, but now like the interesting thing is, okay, like let's convert a couple by hand, write a prompt that includes all of the like instructions and opinions, iterate on that until it starts giving us output closer to what we want, build some tooling to like automate it. So like Dan on our team built a whole like drag and drop web UI where he can like drag component files off out of Finder into the UI, and it converts them to dark mode, and he can tweak them in the browser and then export them right out of there. You know what I mean?
Wow.
And that's a fun
perfect
project,
example.
you know?
The perfect example is like this week on instrumental components. One of those like post-launch things that it was on my to-do list was like, I got to make these components internationalized for multi-language translation, right? I had a couple European customers buy, and they emailed in. They're like, I can't translate these. You don't have the localization tags, right? Which, you know, in Rails, if you don't build that from the get-go, it's like it's sort of a pain in the ass to go through and the tedious work of doing it. So I wrote a prompt. And I built a sort of a flow that is reusable. So now it literally took me one day to internationalize 30 plus components. Yeah. And it's reusable so that every time I create a new component, I can, like, one of the last steps in the launch process for a new component is like internationalize it, go. Like, and the AI like does that.
Yeah.
So like,
see, this is
that's the type of thing that like these tedious projects.
Yeah. And Adam, is there other ways you're using it? This is actually the first time I've heard you talk about using AI at all. I didn't know if you were like for it or against it, or.
I used to be more skeptical than I am now. And I think the thing for me is I was seeing everyone talk about like one-shotting things and like vibe coding things, and to me that feels like bullshit and is just not interesting. To me it felt like, okay, I like programming, like why would I want to not program? But especially when the agent mode stuff came out, I think I started to see how it's more useful, because I forced myself to download Cursor and just try to basically build an entire project, which was like this course platform template that we released not too long ago.
Yeah.
So it's like a Next.js website that's like pretty dynamic and does a bunch of different things. And I just forced myself to build the entire thing without typing any code and just making the computer type the code for me, just to really like throw myself in the deep end and learn like, okay, you know, because in my head I was like, okay, well, if I have to tell it exactly what to do, isn't it just faster to do it myself? And it turns out, no, it's still not faster to do it yourself.
Yeah.
No. Like just the fact that it can build multiple files.
Yeah, and you can. What it feels like is it feels like having your feet up on the desk, pair programming with someone next to you that you can just like talk to like a human being that understands what you want them to do, and they do it. You know.
Yeah, and also like there's a lot of the skeptics will say like, oh, but it's just going to spit back like code slop that I can't use.
Yeah, then you're not being specific enough with what you're asking.
You're not being specific enough.
So did you have to babysit it at all? Like, did you?
Yeah, like extremely, honestly, but
you're still going through
faster,
and approving.
You know,
you're still approving every page and every change. So experienced developers can read the code that it spits back, and you can improve it. But the other thing is that like this stuff is improving so fast. I mean, I'm using mostly Claude Sonnet 4, even 3.7. was so much better than the models from like 6 months ago. Mm-hmm. Like it's not only better at like just programming and just like knowing like the Rails conventions and everything, and it's also better at reading my project and when it generates new code, it first reads my code base and understands how I've implemented certain features in other areas, and then implements based on that. Like it is really good at like adapting, and then like you can take it to the next level. Like you can have like a day one with Cursor, like just fresh install Cursor, try it out, But once you're using it for 6-12 months, now you're getting into like cursor rules.
Yeah.
Now you're really...
I started doing that on the very first day. Basically, anytime I found myself correcting something that it did, I added it to a rules file to make sure I never had to ask it to do that again. So just like little opinions in like our Tailwind projects, if it used like a bottom margin, I always use top margins instead. So add it to the rules file. Don't use bottom margins unless you're doing this. Or when I ask you to like a common thing that I need to do, like a workflow. So I guess like here's the other thing that I kind of became acutely aware of when I started using these workflows is just like how much of the program I do is not programming. It's just like grunt work. It's like 90% grunt work. So Steve has an icon in Figma. I need to take that icon, bring it into my project. I need to optimize the SVG so it's not big. I need to convert it into a React component. I need to add props to it so that I can add classes to it when I'm using it. And the workflow for me has always been right click in Figma, go to this tool, svgomg.com, paste it into the thing, copy the thing out of that, go to transform.tools, paste it in to the HTML to JSX converter, copy the JSX out of that, create a new file in VS Code, paste it in, name the file, whatever. Now it's just like in the cursor chat, I just say like, add this icon to my project, paste the SVG code directly from Figma. And because I've told it, anytime I paste in an SVG, please optimize it. Please name the component files using this convention. Make sure they always have these props. And like, now it's just like a 1-sentence thing. And I wasn't getting any like mental stimulation out of those steps that I was doing before.
No, it's
just
all
like
grunt work.
So like to me, the real unlock has been realizing that this actually lets me like program more, not less, you know?
Like we should be spending our mental cycles on design, designing the structure, the architecture, the user experience, and our skills as experienced full stack designers, developers is now to direct AI to carry out our design, you know? And we are still in touch with the code base. We can still craft it however we want to, and we can craft Cursor to build in the way that we want to. But that's why I actually believe that the more experienced you are in this industry, the better
100%
off you are in this new world.
I've tried to use it with like things I don't know how to do, and it's a fucking disaster. Like I was trying to like prototype like a Swift UI app the other day, which I've never done in my life, and you instantly fall into that trap of like AI being like confidently wrong, but you can't tell because you don't know how to do it yourself. Until like this really clicked for me. I always kind of thought the idea with AI was like, okay, this is gonna like let me do stuff I didn't know how to do before. Like total opposite way to think about it. It's like this is keyboard shortcuts on steroids for the things I'm an expert in. You know, it's like when I started using Sublime Text and I had multiple cursors and all this stuff, and it's like I can just take like what my brain wants to put on the screen and make it appear faster. Like that's what my relationship is with AI too.
For people building new stuff though, I do think that there's an element of like, now that I build with AI, I can be more ambitious about the types of things that I build. I actually think that instrumental components in the way that I built it and the extensive functionality that's built into it definitely would not have happened without this style of building, or I would have built a much simpler version of it.
I've found it useful to separate those two things though, like the using AI to learn and using AI to code as like very discrete tasks. Like I've never had success trying to get Cursor to do something I don't know how to do. Like I get bad results with bugs that I don't understand how to fix. But if I go into ChatGPT and like, I'm trying to do this, what's the right way to think about this? What happens if I do this? Like it's the perfect thing to just like ask dumb questions to, you know what I mean?
I've been doing that pattern where I go to ChatGPT, which the nice thing about ChatGPT is that it has the memory built in. Like it has all my past chats, so it knows a lot about me and my preferences. So I use that as like my strategist, where I bounce ideas and like how would I architect this?
Yeah.
Like then, like so I'll like get the approach there, and then I might also double check in Claude, like are you suggesting the same concept or are there differences? And then when I'm actually like ready to build, I come into Cursor and like, all right, now let's do it.
Yeah.
You know? Is it similar for you, Adam? You've got Cursor for coding stuff and then ChatGPT for the learning stuff.
Yeah. Right now, although I do want to try some other stuff. A lot of people on our team are using Claude Code and liking that a lot. And I've heard a lot of people have been having better results with that than Cursor. And candidly, kind of like appeals to my sensibilities as, it's like a terminal based thing. And I kind of like that it's separate from the editor. There's something about Cursor. Maybe it's just I haven't spent enough time configuring it, where it's just like there's 6 pop-ups at the same time. And I don't know which one hitting tab is going to actually autocomplete, or, there's just all these competing like completions and like AI helpfulness going on that it feels a bit noisy.
I actually don't use the like the inline like pop-up things that you see like that overlay the current file. I'm all about the chat sidebar.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And I also think that is a pattern that is going to become super common across all apps, right? So like
every app needs to have a chat now.
They are, right? Like,
every single one needs to have
Descript now has a cursor like, I think they call it Underlord.
Wait, are they good?
It's
Are these sidebar chat AI chat things good? Because
I played with the Descript one yesterday, and it's not great yet. But like that's and Figma is now.
I haven't tried the one in
chat
Figma,
thing.
but me and Steve always talk about this with Figma. Do you remember when Figma announced their first like AI stuff? It was like at their Figma config event last year. It was all like press a button and get like a mock-up of like your UI, and all the designers like revolted against them, which to me totally makes sense, because when I'm working with Steve in Figma, the opportunities to use AI, which I think maybe it does a better job at now, I haven't looked into it, but the obvious opportunities to use AI is just when Steve is doing tedious shit that he shouldn't have to do. So it's like, okay, I just designed this much, like sidebar thing, and I've got like 3 of these links, and now I just want like 7 more of them. And like,
exactly.
You can do it pretty quickly, copy and pasting stuff, whatever. But now you want to put sample content in there. It'd be nice if it just did all that for you. Like with the template that we were working on, I'm working on like a course platform thing. So I'm coming up with like a fake course, and we come up with a concept for the course. And then I can just say, add like 3 more course modules with about 5 lessons each that like continue with the same sort of theme and the same sense of humor.
Do it how I did it last time.
And it just, boom, that would have taken like
Figma
so much brain power
is like
before.
Figma is the one where like I haven't played with their new AI stuff yet, but I've been waiting for it for so long, because like physically like my body and my back hurt after I do a ton of design work in Figma, because like unlike code where even like the tedious grunt work in code, at least I can use keyboard shortcuts to do a lot of it.
Yeah.
In Figma, it's all mouse. So it's like that's where I'm physically in pain from like doing all these like, I want to round the corners just a little bit more on all these shapes. Like just do it for me.
So here's an unlock for me. There's part of me that has been fighting this whole AI transition, because naturally I learn and I develop and I experience and explore through relationship. So having guys like you that I could talk to and chat and bug and get screen share with has always been the way I learn. It feels like the way to learn AI is similar to that. Like if the unlock for me was if I had an Adam Wathan or Brian Casel on a screen share with me, and I'm like, okay, going in there, and Adam goes, no, don't do it that way. You got to think about it this way. And then Brian's saying, actually, you got to configure it this way. I could see I would want to learn AI in that way, but so much of learning AI seems to be people just with their little chatbot, ChatGPT, and they're learning how to use AI with the AI itself.
Well, that's why I'm really into this new shift that's I think kind of happening right now, which is like we're going like there's been this agent mode for the past year.
Yeah.
But even that is like my fingers are tired from typing prompts.
Yes.
Like, and especially because like I do want to give it super detailed instructions, because I have a very specific way I want it to carry out my instructions. So sometimes my prompts are like 3 paragraphs long.
Yeah.
So there's like I'll even like draft prompts in other files before I bring them into Cursor, right? And that's a pain. And I'm doing it repeatedly throughout the day, and so that's where this more cohesive strategic look develop, like put your energy and your creativity into this PRD process up front. We're front loading the strategic plan, like either it's a product or like a big feature. Let's I could type in a 3-paragraph prompt that says like, here's what I want to build today. Now turn that into a long, detailed PRD, project requirement document. Then now AI turn that into high-level tasks for the roadmap.
Mm-hmm.
Now let's break those into subtasks. And now we literally have a checklist. And then the rest of my day is like, okay, let's do task number 2.1, go. Like, and then
just walking through it.
Then it does it. I review it. I approve it. And also like taking a test-driven development process with this really helps. Like I haven't been a super TDD person in the past, but with this new approach, it makes me more likely to be like like write the test first, build the feature, make sure the test pass,
mm-hmm.
and then I approve it.
Yeah.
And now we move on to the next task in the list. And I don't need to prompt every single one because it's just keeping track of the task list throughout the project.
Yeah.
You know, like that is a more, I think, professional way of doing it. I think that's where we're shifting now.
Well, you can imagine to get started, like if I had someone to coach, like here's the best PRD for your guys' Rails project. Like, let me help you write that. And because someone who's done it and done a bunch of work in these, like Adam was saying, he every time he ran into something, were you adding a rule in the PRD, Adam? Is that what you're doing?
With the cursor rules stuff? Cursor has this concept of like a rules file that lives in like a .cursor or .cursor rules folder or something in your project. You can just drop like markdown files in there to kind of give it, to kind of tune it and point it in like the right direction for like every instruction.
So there's like overall rules for the platform, and then there's PRD is like project specific.
Yes.
Got it.
Yeah. But then you can even have like a cursor rule for like every time I want to build a PRD, follow this process.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then there's a cursor rule for how to turn a PRD into a task list, and then how to turn and then how to create a checklist for that, and you know.
So Adam, for you, I'm just trying to think, how do you think this is going to affect your business? Like,
yeah, I think it already is. You know, there's a lot of like V0, you know, is a competitor with our business at the end of the day. Yeah, I'm not sure. Like, I think we've been seeing effects of it for like a long time already. There's a lot of things that do make me like nervous. Like people want like LLM.txt versions of our documentation, right? And I'm like hesitant to do that because our business depends on traffic to the website where people are going to notice that there's products for sale, you know?
Yeah.
And if everyone is just looking at a markdown file that's pure documentation with no ability for us to like advertise that lives in their editor, you know, then we have no distribution
on that point
anymore.
about traffic to your website. I heard this interview with Rand Fishkin on like the Wistia podcast like 2 weeks ago with Chris Savage. Really, really great interview. Just talking all about, and this is a thing that he's been saying for years. And there goes my stupid camera. I'll just talk off.
Yeah, just keep going.
This like zero traffic or zero click internet is happening, and that's where we're going. And whether we like it or not, I think across the board, look, like people are getting answers without going to the final website. They're getting it from Google. They're getting it from LLMs. You know.
Yeah.
And that's going to have different impacts on different businesses, but that's sort of just the reality of where the trend line is going to keep going.
I'm not sure what my takeaways are from that really, or my conclusion from it. I think one thing is that I think it's going to be more important than ever to have like an audience.
That is like the conclusion that I keep coming back to is like if it's zero, if organic traffic from search is on the decline, the answer to that is personal influence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know?
And then the other thing for us is just to, I don't know, like I think if you're building a tool that costs money and it solves a problem, then you still can find customers, you know what I mean? And I guess that's like still true for us regardless, although like we are like competing with AI in a lot of ways. Although I've become a little bit more optimistic about it over the past few days, because I do kind of think like there is something to the experience of like browsing curated designs on like Tailwind UI that is easier than blank canvas trying to get AI to do something nice when maybe like you don't even really know what you want. So we've been thinking about like how can we leverage AI to just like produce more stuff that has our fingerprint on it.
Yeah, but directed by you and Steve.
Yeah, exactly.
We do need to have another Adam Wathan episode to unpack your because like the thing that comes to mind now is like, yeah, you're saying things that like V0 or competitors, but like it's also like everything is using Tailwind now.
Yeah, and it's frustrating because everything on earth is using Tailwind, and there's like nothing we can do to benefit from it. It's purely a burden in a lot of ways. It's just like I have like over $1 million in salary obligations that pay people just to fix bugs in a free tool.
Yeah,
that people don't pay me back for. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
So it's kind of brutal. Like I'm very ready for like my next act in a lot of ways, honestly.
Okay.
Like like we're working on like adding support to Tailwind UI or Tailwind Plus as it is now for like adding JavaScript support to the vanilla HTML stuff, which we never had before. And just in the past, it would have been obvious to do that as like an open source library, and like really though, I don't think we're going to do that this time. I think it's just going to be part of the commercial product, and you have to have a license to use the JavaScript, because what is the incentive to make it free just so that somebody else can go and use it to build a tool that like competes with ours without having to do any of the work to maintain that torturous, like hard to maintain JavaScript library.
I mean, I think that sounds directionally correct, but like the thing that I think I'm thinking about, and maybe if you're thinking about like what is the next act or the next phase of Tailwind Labs, what you were talking about last time with like building up the YouTube studio.
Yeah.
Like I'm trying to restrain myself from jumping too far ahead to like what is the next product? Like, is it a course? Is it a this or is it a that? Like I'm just like, let me just get into motion, and if all that means is I'm releasing new YouTube content every week and listening to the feedback and trying to spot the trends of where what are the solid patterns that I can build off of, then whatever products or business direction, like that's going to make itself obvious at some point. But for now, if all I really should be concerned with, and maybe you, Adam, too, is like just be in motion on what would need to be true for the next phase to happen, and that probably means like weekly YouTube videos.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we're still bullish on doing that stuff. Like I'm working on like a Tailwind course, like an official paid Tailwind course that where the unique value proposition is like it's taught by me. So if you want to know how I do things, like this is where you're going to learn how to do that. And it's a nice thing that we can sell to our existing customers because it's a separate product, and it sits on the same site that still gets like 10 million visits a month or whatever. So, I love that's a good idea.
I think that makes total sense for
and then,
your business.
And then on the side, me and Steve are designing video editing software right now, because that's like a pain point that we have like when we make this content,
No way.
I'm getting pretty excited about that. So
talk about something that's outside of your normal, like what you must be having to learn a lot there.
Technology wise, yes, but it's kind of funny because like it's a very full circle moment for me, because when I was in like college and committing to becoming like a professional programmer, I went in with like the thing I want to be able to do is build my own like audio editing tool to use instead of Pro Tools or Logic or whatever, because I just have so many workflow opinions about all this stuff, because that's what I was doing before, was recording bands for a living, and there's just so many things that could have been like faster, And Steve has the same background. Like he went to school for audio engineering. So it's fun to be like,
I got a degree in that too. And we all ended up being like web developers.
So to get into like, designing like software for compositing video tracks and doing edits.
I do want to hear about that. It sounds a little bit out of left field for you, but also like, I don't know what your roadmap is or plan for that is, but I feel like it has to be dude, like it has to be AI, dude.
I
like
think there
the
has
idea
to be
of like
some
manual
AI stuff in there. There's
like,
so many things that
I'm
AI
using,
can do there now, you know, like.
Yeah, so like I'm using Descript now. I go back and forth between ScreenFlow, Descript, and a little bit of Screen Studio whenever I'm doing videos. And I'm just always on the lookout for like, how can I remove the grunt work?
Yeah,
and,
like how can I just get it to delete everything except the good takes, which is always the last take, and you can tell because it transcribed everything. Yeah, I've seen
Descript has that feature, but it like only works like 80% of the time. And,
yeah, and even like captions. Like, do you remember, like Justin? I mean, both of you guys will remember this, but like, there was a time back in like 2015 where like we all felt guilty about our podcasts not having transcriptions, and we were all debating what service. We're asking people at MicroConf, like, who do you pay to like transcribe your podcast, and what's their turnaround time and whatever. Like, that is such like ancient history. Like that whole idea. It's just like an instant free thing that's perfect now. You know?
Yeah.
I just did a voice note an hour ago, and it like my iPhone transcribed it. Done.
Yeah, it's like, insane.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, so here's to wrap this up. I'm hearing some things. This
AI is cool. Like AI, threatened by AI, empowered by AI.
We're really just like trying to lay like the groundwork so that like when the LLMs read the transcript of this episode, like we're spared. We're on their good side.
I mean, to me, it sounds like the first theme I'm taking away here, and again, the chat's blown up here. I think a lot of people participated.
Yeah, so much for trying to keep up.
Really appreciate it. I think it's awesome. But I think expertise is one thread we have here. Like there's still nobody that can build UI components like Adam and Steve. Like there's something about that is magical. But also expertise in terms of using AI, knowing when it's wrong, knowing how to direct it. That feels like a strong thread. And also expertise in the sense that if either of you came into Transistor and spent the day with my team, I think you would be able to, in an opinionated, expert-like way, say, here's what you should do, here's how you should set it up, don't think about it this way. Like, I think that service, that idea, that's pretty strong here.
Mm-hmm.
That's the same exact sentiment that I heard from my friend today.
Yeah.
The guy who reached out asking for that. And that's what I'm learning. And I think that there's just, aside from like a direct like work with companies on that problem, I think that there's a larger opportunity.
I think there's a massive appetite here. Even look at the chat. Listen to Adam, listen to everybody's just saying, like, everybody's grappling with this in real time. It's clearly paradigm shifting. It's clearly like the tectonic plates of the industry are moving. Everyone's trying to figure it out.
And it's like one of those things that like with anything with web development, software development, I've always had this massive level of imposter syndrome of like, who am I to teach anything related to programming or coding, because there are so many people who are so much more experienced than me and are smarter than me when it comes to how to write programming logic, right? But I think that when it comes to development workflow and building with AI and using tools like Cursor, I think right now we're still in this like phase where it's like we're all just figuring this out.
Yeah.
Like there is no tried and true like accepted methodology that more experienced people have that that you or I or any of us have. Like it right now, we are all figuring it. It's happening.
Yeah.
But nobody really knows what the solid workflow is right now. You know?
And the other thread I'm getting, and this has come up before, but you know, Adam's working on this new video editor. It feels like looking at what AI could enable for your team, for you know, as another bet during this time is another thing that's happening. Like people are saying, okay, well, what can we take our unique expertise into that we wouldn't normally be able to do and start building some shit that might be the next act of our stuff, you know?
Yeah, I think the important thing is just do stuff and make sure you're not being
a
not
Luddite.
swimming up against the current. You know what I mean? Like, make sure you're informed before you take that stance, or you're gonna find yourself a little behind the curve, I think.
Yeah.
And I think the best way to learn the AI stuff, like I really learned a lot very quickly by just like doing that one project where I just didn't let myself write any code.
Yeah.
And I don't think that should be like the goal. Again, like to me, I like writing code. I think a lot of the criticism that you hear, a lot of like the concern that you hear from developers, like, well, I don't want to be a full-time code reviewer. Like that's the part of my job I hate the most. Like, why would I design things in a way to be doing that all the time? But it's up to you, like how you use it. That's one way to do it. You can have things like asynchronously submitting PRs for you and reviewing those PRs and stuff like that. But that's not how it feels when I use it. It just feels like it's doing what I tell it to do, and I see exactly on the screen what I expect to see. You know, I'm not really like reviewing the approach. I'm giving it the approach, and it's just producing the characters faster.
Like,
you know,
the creativity in the craft that happens up front.
Yeah.
At the prompting stage, but even before that, it's like the PRD, like the project plan stage. Like that's where we, as the experience, like this is what we need to build because this is what we want to deliver for customers. Like that's where all the creativity is happening.
Yeah.
I think the other,
because like even like these like non-technical idea guys and gals who like they might have like but like I mean, people can have great ideas about what a customer wants, and that's extremely valuable. But then there's also incredible value in like, okay, like actually delivering a solid product.
Yeah.
Oh, you know, from front to back. There, as we all know, like there's so much more that goes into that, and that's where like directing an AI to carry that out.
Yeah.
And just honestly, like what you were saying, like it is about like removing the grunt work.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, it's cool, man. I feel like I could talk about it a long time.
Did you have one more thing you were going to say, Adam, before we close here?
Yeah, there's two things I'll say quickly. On the vibe coding thing, I am not interested in that for like professional work, but it is extremely cool that you can build custom tools for yourself to solve little problems extremely quickly. So like I built like a workout tracking thing for myself just so that like it would tell me like what plates to put on the bar and like what my next set would be and calculate a couple things and stuff like that. And that I've never read the code. I just told it to make it for me and just gave it feedback based on the UI. And I don't care because I don't care if it has bugs that would be security issues, or it's just like a private tool for me that I was never going to build. But now that I can just ask the computer to do it and it magically does it, now I have it and it exists. I did the same thing for like an interval timer. So when I'm doing things in like the gym, and I just wanted an app that would just beep every 15 seconds. So I knew to like switch movements, and I couldn't find one on the App Store, but like AI built it for me in 2 seconds. So that's cool.
Yeah.
I'd love an app that would keep my camera on.
And then the other thing I'm excited about that I'm just like starting to get into now is just building custom AI like automation flows. There's this really great article by Torsten Ball, who works at SourceGraph. It's called like How to Build an Agent or something. And as you're reading it, the whole time you're just expecting to get to the hard part where it's like, oh yeah, and then like the super hard thing that I can't do. But like you never get there. It's just you get through the whole article and you're like, oh shit, actually, yeah, I guess I could do that. And I don't know, it just gives me all sorts of ideas for, like Jack McDade messaged me the other day and he was like, does Tailwind have, are you guys adding this new CSS feature to Tailwind? And I'm like, well, one day. It's not like on my calendar to go and do it right now. And, you know, he's a bit paralyzed because he's going to add it himself, but he wants to make sure he uses the same APIs that we're going to use, so that when we eventually do add it, he can just delete his stuff and it'll just keep working. And it just had me thinking, man, like I could totally build a tool that runs on a server on a cron job and kind of just like watches the same sources for information that I watch, like these like super CSS nerd blogs, and notices new CSS features. And I could give it some context and instructions and do everything I can to make it easy for it to like design new Tailwind features the way that I would do.
Dude,
and then just wake up to a pull request
Tailwind
once in a while that's like, oh, hey, here's a pull request for this new CSS feature, and it's named the same way you would name it, and it works the same way you would make it work. And
interesting.
then I didn't have to do it.
Like,
and
but that is where we're going, and it's not even
wow.
Like that is possible today.
It's 100% possible today. And the best part about it is if it sucks, I can just like say no and close it. Whereas right now, if a human being does that, I have to be like, dude, I'm so sorry. I know you spent like 15 hours on this. I don't have time to really review this right now. But, you know, it's just like,
or more likely is like it's more likely it's going to be like 80 or 90% there, and you're going to go in and tweak a few things and then ship it.
Or
you know,
and if I let it sit there for 9 months, the AI isn't going to get mad at me or think I'm ignoring it, or you know, it's. There's so many elements to having like a soulless machine do work for you instead of human beings. That's just
it's also, this is such a bigger conversation, but like what does it mean for our psyche to have some like an AI that we can just talk to or strategize with? I've been doing like business strategy and planning for this direction, right? And how ChatGPT has my whole history and everything, and it's like, damn, it like knows what what I'm thinking and what my aspirations are. But then it's like the next thing, it's like, oh, I know. It's almost like feeling a little bit embarrassed. Like, I know I said this thing yesterday, but now I changed my mind about this direction. Like, why am I fucking embarrassed? I'm talking to a computer, you know?
True.
Like, it's insane, dude.
All right, I got to run. I'm going to be late, drop my kids off at dance. But
thanks for
having me
joining
on.
us.
It was fun.
Yeah, thanks, man.
All right, see you guys.
Later,
I
man.
mean, I think we should end it, but this, to me, I think this worked out really well. We had this active chat. We had we got Junta in the chat. We had all sorts of people interacting.
The chat is a lot more active than I expected it.
And we had Adam join us at the end. It was kind of like the perfect, like I could send a link to Adam because he was interacting in the chat, and I think we could do that more often. And it just, this whole thing, this is like one of those episodes where I am just chewing on all this AI stuff. Now I'm thinking in my head, like, what are the next things I need to go do? I think for sure, Brian, it feels like there's an opportunity for you here, and some sort of like AI for the rest of us newsletter needs to happen. Like that, to me, feels like the starting point.
I like that. The thing, yeah. The thought that I had there was like a monthly, because it's also like, how do I mean, maybe some of it I could use AI to help, but like a monthly builder letters. Like here's the thing that over the past month I'm most excited about and that I think is important to focus on. Let's tune out the rest of the noise.
Yeah.
And just and I also think that like by making it once a month, like not a weekly or semi-daily newsletter, but here's the June edition of builder letters, you know, like, and I think that adds some importance to it. So that's sort of my working concept for like maybe rebranding my newsletter or relaunching it as like something that you sort of want to tune into. You're only going to get it once a month.
Yeah.
And I'll have like the steady stream of YouTube stuff coming out weekly. That's more like real time, but like the big thing that you need to care about is probably the monthly thing that drops. Like that's my thought.
Yeah,
right now.
I think it should be weekly personally, because I feel like people need that drip. They might only catch, 1 out of 3 emails, but when they...
But I also think that like that's what makes it different, because the point is like, you don't need to stay on top of every single latest, greatest thing, because there are 50 new things that drop every single week.
Yeah.
The point is like, you should ignore most of that.
Okay.
That's the thought. And also, I just don't want to have the work of having to deliver it. All right.
Well, I think by next week, we're going to try to do another live next week. So that'll be, next Thursday, we'll go live again. I think you should have this will be easy for you, a sign up page for that. Even if it's just a waiting list, like I'm planning on writing something in this zone, I think narrowing or expanding the audience is going to be interesting, because I think founders are going to be interested, executives, developers, And there's all sorts of ways, like how does this affect business strategy? How does this affect web development? How does this affect product development? There's all sorts of places where I think people are going to want help.
Like I have a potential first client for this. I don't want this to turn into just a client service. I do want to start to think about how is this a product and an actual business that grows. But for right now, I'm very much in the learning phase and the audience like launching phase.
Yeah,
you know?
Definitely, folks. Reach out to Brian if you've got thoughts as you've been listening or watching. Thanks again to everyone who showed up live. We'll see you next Thursday, 12:15 p.m. Pacific on June 12th.
Yes, sir.
See ya.
Later, folks.